And, of course, Charlie Gasparino was there covering that in the wee days of looking into financial institutions and improprieties and all of that. He's joining me right now. Good to see you, my friend. What is going on with this sell-off?
A lot of things. I mean, it's never one thing. It's fear about Apple's earnings. But underlying the fear about Apple's earnings is the fact that the Chinese economy is slowing. So
that's a big deal.
And some of the stuff you've been saying, and I kind of tweeted some of this out. I don't know. I gave you credit. You know, you didn't thank me or anything. But in any event, this stuff.
You're a gifted writer.
No, but I gave you credit.
Columns, I didn't see that.
You didn't say thank you, Charlie.
No, I just said to you, you're a gifted writer.
Okay, but what I said, giving you credit, was what you've been calling a long time. Like you've been saying, listen. Even if we get a trade deal with China, their economy's slowing. It might not matter.
Wouldn't that be a kick?
Listen, the economy's definitely slowing there. I don't think it has anything to do with Trump, and the smaller tariffs he's put in. This is China deleveraging the banks and doing a lot of things with its own economy, which is causing the economy to cool.
Do you think there's any of the trade stuff working in this respect? I know Tim Cook dismissed it in a CNBC interview, saying that he does not think that Chinese shoppers are angry at America, so any American firm like an Apple, and is skewing their iPhones for other phones. But I can't help but not think that is part of what's going on.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, there's some of that. Yeah. But remember, a lot of it is the economy of China slowing down, cooling. Right. Their consumer economy slowing down. Other economies around the world slowing down.
By the way, I don't mean to interrupt you, my friend, but you know this fellow being sworn in right now, the junior senator from Utah, taking the place of Orrin Hatch. Mitt Romney, what did you make of his comments about the president? He's not ethically up to speed.
I think it was unfortunate. I think it makes him look bad. And I like Mitt Romney. I know him a little bit.
It sounded very phony to me.
He said it already. He broke bread with the president. He
wanted to be his Secretary of State.
And then you come out and right before you take. I mean, listen. Unless you really think it's a crisis time, and I don't think we are, because we've seen Trumpism now for 2 years. It's like a rolling crisis. You don't say something like that. It starts off. But I will say this.
I just don't know what he was getting at. What's his agenda?
Yeah, I mean, I agree politically, but I just will say this. Some of the stuff he said in there is impacting the markets, I believe. I mean, the fact that you have a very volatile president and an economically inastute man. I mean, he came out and he said the reason why the Soviet Union imploded is because they had a war in Afghanistan. No. The war in Afghanistan occurred as the Soviet Union was already in implosion mode. The Soviet Union imploded because it was a ridiculous economic system that couldn't sustain itself. And by the way, no offense, they couldn't borrow globally to finance their military buildup as we could. That's why it imploded. The state-run system that they created, China was smart enough to transition out of that a lot sooner.
I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt that Mitt Romney is now a United States senator, by the way. This is the first time we've seen in quite a while a presidential candidate go back to Washington. Of course, he was never in Washington. He was the governor of the state of Massachusetts, but now coming back as Utah resident by birth, and now becoming the junior senator.
Mormon, and that's a say.
But I think to give the president a benefit of the doubt here, that he was trying to say that was their Vietnam, it heralded all these other things.
But
I agree with you.
But he's wrong, and I think that
But you think he's fast and loose with the facts?
Yeah, and I think on economic, see, I don't think the markets care if he says, like, there were 10,000 people dancing, Arab Americans dancing during 9/11, which isn't true. You remember he said, he made that wild claim. They care about, is he going to fudge, and is he so economically uninformed that he's going to say stuff like that? Or remember,
could he undo his own economic and market recovery?
Yeah, to an extent, but that's some of the fear. Remember, tariff man. He thinks tariffs are good. Yeah. Tariffs are not good for the markets or the economy. They've never been. Now, they may be a useful weapon that you have to employ sometimes, but they're not good. Everybody knows it. The people that employed it, both Democrats in terms of Barack Obama, Republicans, George W. Bush, will tell you they suck as an economic tool. Do you remember when he said...
But he says it's already raised billions of dollars and that could pay for a wall and all of that. It just goes...
It's baloney, and that's what the market is worried about. Is he sophisticated enough to run an economy? Does he listen to guys that are like Mnuchin and Hassett and Larry Kudlow? And remember, Jerry...
By the way, Kevin Hassett was just on the airwaves talking about a slowdown for a lot of companies
because of trade.
Just the Apple,
because of trade.
Because of Well, of China slowing down.
Yeah, and also trade, he said. He said if you factor in.
What do you think of that? And is that something you have to worry about?
Yeah, and he's being honest, and he's probably going to get in trouble with the president. One other point,
although he smiles a lot as he says it.
Yeah, they do that all the time, right? Rudy does. You ever notice that Rudy, before he tells you to go jump off a bridge, he's like, ha, ha, ha. But in any event, one other thing. Do you remember during the campaign, Trump said that I will renegotiate the debt with the other countries if I had to?
I do.
You know what that means? That's default.
Right.
I mean, he didn't understand that was the
little detail there.
A little detail about default.
But you're a hater.
That's what I read.
Yeah.
A never Trump. What is this never Trumper?
Yeah. You're just never give him a breaker.
Yes. I call balls and strikes. Tell Ralph to shut up.
That's
He's
a
yelling in
baseball
my ear.
Yeah, he does that a lot. He's young. All right.